Hey guys, what's up? This is Blue. Today is an impromptu video, and it's crazy because I haven't made a video in like 4 weeks. The whole month of May, for those of you who don't know, was the month of mourning. For me and my tribe, we lost someone very, very, very special to us to COVID-19, and it was a jarring and painful time. It triggered up feelings about other tragedies and deaths that had happened in my family. And so I just took off the month of May just to mourn. And given how precarious 2020 was, it made sense for me to take a month away from making video content just to recalibrate myself. Unfortunately, while I was taking that month off, the George Floyd incident happened where he was murdered by police in Minneapolis, and it was gut-wrenching when I watched the video. Mind you, I watched this video maybe a week and a half after someone that we cared about had just been buried. So I already had some really freshly opened wounds just about death in general. And so the video was very triggering for me. I've actually never watched the video in its entirety. There's just a certain point where I just couldn't. It broke my heart. And like many of you, I felt like I needed to do what I could to use my voice, my platform, my resources in order to make sure that he didn't die in vain, right? This is nothing new, unfortunately. Police brutality is nothing new, even though we might think of it sometimes as an intellectual debate, particularly when we talk about cases like Colin Kaepernick. I feel like a lot of people owe Colin Kaepernick an apology because what we're all crying about now is exactly what he was kneeling about years ago. So yeah, that's why I've been gone for the past month. The reason why I'm making this video today is because yesterday, Monday, I saw something on social media about something called Blackout Tuesday, and I quickly read it. It said something about music, and I'm not in the music industry, and I kept it moving. Didn't think anything of it. I had spent all of yesterday posting updates about what's happening with the protesters, writing articles about how there was all this proof about interlopers and people who were trying to take over and hijack the narrative of what the protests really meant in order to sell some propaganda about Black Lives Matter and anti-police brutality protesters that wasn't true. So I spent Monday like on 10. I think I did like 3 posts on Instagram. I usually do like 1 post on Instagram every other day. I did 3 posts within like 5 hours because I really wanted people to stay informed about the misinformation that was being put out there about what was really happening on the streets and how people were being maligned, not just physically, but also being demonized to their own communities. Monday was a heavy day for me. I remember talking to my homegirl Miriam and saying, I actually think my blood pressure is spiking from all the anger and frustration and sadness that I'm feeling right now. I'm gonna need to take a day off for my own mental health, because if I get sick from the rage, I can't help anybody else. And that's something that I believe in strongly, is that you can't help someone if your cup is empty. There's nothing to pour from it. So I said that to her. And almost as if it was kismet, I get a DM from one of my followers and really loyal readers from Middle America. She doesn't live in a major city. I won't say her name, but she knows who she is. And she hit me up and she was like, Blue, are you going to take part in Blackout Tuesday? And I was like, isn't that just for like music or something? And she was like, well, people keep mentioning that they're going to do it. And she said to me, and this is what got to me, she said to me that she had been angry at the protesters because she thought that they were just looting and making a big mess and this, that, and the other. And from reading my articles and watching the discussions that were taking place on my social media feed, she suddenly realized the error of her ways and that all forms of revolution are not going to be comfortable, but there are several ways that we can all get to the promised land, right? So she said to me, she was like, I read your stuff and now I feel energized and I want to take part in showing that my voice is now aligned with these protesters who up until recently I had been judging with everybody else. And that was really moving to me, because when I write stuff, I write to clarify. I don't write to necessarily change people's minds. I'm actually really I'm really comfortable with people not agreeing with me. I don't write because I need you to agree with me. I just write because I want to make sure that all voices are being heard and that the facts are not being skewed. That's my only intention. If you have the real facts and you very sincerely were listening to different voices and you still came to the same conclusion, bet That's cool. But I'm not cool with people spilling misinformation and making things worse than they need to be, right? So when she sent me that message, I was like, oh, that's amazing. So she was like, yeah, not to share too much of her information, but she's someone who's living with a disability. She does not make a lot of money, and she lives in middle America. She's not in one of the major cities where she felt like she could protest without her danger being put in jeopardy. I mean, her safety being put in jeopardy. And she also mentioned that if she got arrested, she wouldn't be afforded to bail herself out, which is real, guys. Like, there are people out there who want to protest, but who just cannot afford to. And that's something that a lot of celebrities and people with power have been using their funds to help bail folks out, because they recognize that people are financially disenfranchised, even when they're fighting for their civil liberties and for their freedoms. So she was like, yeah, I'm excited about taking part of Blackout Tuesday, because even though it's just me putting out a black square, I finally get to feel like I'm part of the movement. And that touched me, right? Because recently, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, during the Dear Culture podcast, I was talking to Martin Lamont Hill, and we were talking about digital activism. And he and I both were having a conversation where he said, we need to be careful about dismissing digital activism, because it can be ableist, right? Not everybody can physically or financially or emotionally withstand what it takes to be on the front lines. And just because they can't physically do it doesn't mean that their hearts are any less with us. And I was like, yo, he's right. It can be ableist when we act as if you have to be on a picket line to be an activist. I'm going to tell you guys very honestly, the first time I ever took part in a protest was in 2004. Okay, I've been protesting since I was basically a child myself. And I was protesting in Boston, Massachusetts in 2004. To some people, Boston, Massachusetts is considered one of the whitest places in the world. And I was out here yelling for Black power and gay rights in Boston, Massachusetts, before social media, before hashtags, before it was something that you could get clout or credit for. I was protesting back when being a protester was looked down upon, and it wasn't something that made you get clapped for. People thought you were crazy, right? And so I've been a part of this movement and several other movements for quite some time. So I'm not new to this. I'm not green to what happens when you take to the streets. And for about 10 years of my life, that was the main form of how I was an activist. However, when I started working in digital media, and this article that I wrote for the Griot ended up getting like 14 million views. And I remember Dave Wilson, the founder of the Griot, calling me freaking out, because he was like, yo, like, there are people in Australia reading this article. And that's when it hit me. There are people in this world who will never see me march on the street, who are going to still learn from me by reading stuff that I write digitally. And that's when I started to evolve in what I considered activism, and I started to appreciate that digital activism actually could be just as relevant and just as powerful and just as meaningful and successful as the old school way of doing it. And so when this young lady hit me up about how she felt like she was going to finally be able to join the movement, I was like, yo, that's real. Like, that's cool. And I still hadn't decided if I want to take part again, in part in it, but I was happy that she felt like she had a way of taking part. Fast forward a couple hours later, a couple of my other friends DM me like, yo, we're taking part in Blackout Tuesday. You put up something, a black square, hashtag Blackout Tuesday, and it's a moment for us to stop talking about selfies and things that might be a little bit more frivolous, and just like take a moment of silence. Now, I'm gonna tell you something right now. I have no problem with frivolous. I actually am the kind of person who believes that you can read James Baldwin while twerking to a Beyonce song at the same time, and it's valid, right? So I'm not part of the respectability politics thing that feels like you have to walk around acting as if you are, a freedom fighter, and be serious and scowling at the screen to prove that your heart is with your people. However, I do appreciate what a moment of silence means. I do appreciate that people who are living with disabilities, or who are living in areas where they just can't physically take part, how they also want to have their voices heard. And I also was like, yo, I'm so burnt out from Monday and watching Trump with his Bible, doing that press conference in the garden, I was like, I actually think for mental health reasons, I actually do need a day off. And so I was like, yeah, I lose nothing by taking this day off because I needed a day off anyways. I never once thought to myself, yo, if something big happens, I'm not going to post it because it's Blackout Tuesday. Like, come on. If the White House was on fire on Blackout Tuesday, I think everybody who had posted about Blackout Tuesday would have put that on hold to post that, hey, Trump's house is burning down. You know what I mean? So it was something to me that was just an old method that had worked very successfully and with very little controversy in the past. I remember one time I went to sleep and woke up and everybody on my timeline, all their pages were blue because I think something had happened in Sudan and they had all decided to make their pages blue. And the funny thing is, when that happened, I didn't know what was happening until I saw all the blue pages, and it made me go research why they were joining this protest. So I personally know that there've been times where, or even when Notre Dame burnt down, or several different things that have happened, using your page and blacking it out with one color and solidarity is a very tried and true thing that's been happening on social media for over a decade. And when it happens, people who are not well informed often find themselves wanting to know more about why you're all joining this movement. So to me, it was like more of the same. Oh, okay, this time we're doing it for protesters. Bet, got it. So Monday night, I get a reminder from a friend like, hey, Blackout Tuesday is about to start on the East Coast, heads up for the West Coast. I was like, all right, cool. Didn't think anything of it. I posted what she sent me, and then I sent it as a reminder to my friends like, hey, if you're taking part of Blackout Tuesday, this is the square that you can use. To me, it was something simple. Suddenly, my friend Muse, shout out to Muse, because I love Muse. We have really great conversations, maybe because she's an Aquarius, and I think Aquarians are aliens, and I'm a bit weird myself, so we get each other. But like Muse was talking to me, and she was like, Blue, I'm not sure I'm down with this. And I was like, why? She was like, well, what does it do? And I was like, well, and then I went to the standard speech that I went into, like, presentation matters, and they're trying to other the protesters and make them seem like bad guys when they're really fighting for our freedom. And so if we can show them that they have, mass support across the country, we're taking back the narrative, Like, I give that standard speech that I always give. And God bless Muse, she was like, yeah, that's great, but like, isn't this about the music industry though? And I was like, yeah, I don't know anything about that part. Like, I know it had started off as being something that had to do with the music industry, but by the time it got to me 3 or 4 times over, it felt like it had evolved in something else. And here's where I'm going to hit pause. This is the moment where it highlights a huge vacuum right now in our culture. We do not have any strong leadership. If we had strong leadership, if we had voices that were not worried about being celebrities and that were actually thinking about being for the people who were actually thinking about what's good, and who, and I'm not talking about actual celebrities, I'm talking about people who are activists for celebrity rather than being activists for the people. If we had people out there that were strong voices that were consistently being given the platforms and the resources they needed to have a clear action plan that they could speak to the public about, then we wouldn't have these questions. I wouldn't be in my DMs with Muse trying to figure out what was going on. You know what I mean? There would have been a placard that would have went out and said, hey, if you're going to be part of Blackout Tuesday, this is why you're doing it. This is who came up with it, X, Y, and Z. Because I didn't have that, all I had was an inbox full of readers who sincerely come to me for insight, who were telling me they were taking part and that they had in some way been inspired by me to take part in this movement, despite judging it initially. I felt compelled to join it because I wanted to show solidarity to them and to the protesters, and to show that, look, here's a non-ableist view of how you can be a part of this and lend your voice, even if you have restricted resources. And in fact, when somebody came in my comment section under my initial Blackout Tuesday post, I actually posted that. He was like, why are you doing this? And I was like, oh, from what I've been told, it's a non-ableist way to show solidarity and take a moment out, to take a moment of silence to show people that Black Lives Matter and protesters, because Black Lives Matter and protesters are not synonymous. There are protesters out there who do not belong to Black Lives Matter and vice versa. And so I was like, it's a way to show solidarity to all parties involved that are fighting the good fight on our behalf. That's what I was told. That's what I bought into. Posted it, hashtag Blackout Tuesday, sent it to my loved ones, went to sleep. Boy, when I woke up today, because today's still Tuesday, when I woke up today and saw my text messages, I was confused. There are a lot of people in this world that I know that I'm cool with, that I don't talk about our friendships a lot in public because I don't want folks to use me as an attempt to try to get to my friends. So I know industry insiders. I know some studio execs. I know some celebrities. I know some, people who are really, really powerful in their own right, who have the resources and the means to affect change in this community. And they often come to me because they know that I'm more concerned about doing what's right for my people than I am about getting credit. So as long as I make sure that you and I are having a conversation where I'm helping you empower my people, I don't necessarily need to be the face of a movement. I just want results, okay? I just want results. And so a lot of those people who I respect were blowing me up because they wanted to know what I thought about what was happening online. And I was like, what do you mean what's happening online? They were like, Blue, wake, I'm on the West Coast. So I'm 3 hours behind my East Coast friends. They were like, Blue, check your Instagram. People are going ham. I go on Instagram and I see people talking crazy to their followers. And here's the thing that blew me. All last week, protesters were being talked down to and being called looters, in large part by their own community. Black people were saying to other black people, why are you doing this? It serves no one, X, Y, and Z. This is pointless. I spent the entirety of last week explaining to folks why it's not pointless and why different forms of protest and activism and advocacy are valid, and that we have to have a multi-pronged approach to dismantling oppression. I spent all last week defending a lot of the activists that I know and love sincerely. It broke my heart to wake up this morning and see some of those same activists who I was fighting for talking down and judging people in the same way that they had been judged just a few days ago. The hypocrisy was glaring to me. Here's the thing. If you do not want to take part in Blackout Tuesday, don't take part. It's that simple. If you want to make sure that Blackout Tuesday wasn't co-opted and turned into something that could be damaging, then send people clarifying information. Because unfortunately, in lieu of us having strong leadership, it's up to us to keep each other honest. I saw some amazing people. Jay Ellis, shout out to Jay Ellis, who plays Lawrence on Insecure. Shout out to Amber Whittington, amazing YouTuber who I love and adore. Shout out to my homegirl, Mariam Iman. Shout out to David Johns. People who I love and respect, they were writing posts that were saying, hey, friends, if you take part in Blackout Tuesday, number one, do not use the hashtag Black Lives Matter because it's going to clog up the feed. Number two, if you can, please post something to people in these select states, reminding them that today is a primary. Is an election so that they can vote. And number three, just make sure that if something really important happens, that you still stay engaged, because despite the optics of the digital moment of silence that we're taking, if something really pertinent happens, we still want you to prioritize bodies over a digital protest. All three of those things made sense. All three of those messages could be easily conveyed without any ire. And my friends made me so proud that they were still taking part in Blackout Tuesday while still keeping people informed. I and myself turned around and did the same thing. I posted a blacked out reminder for people to vote in certain areas, including DC, where I'm from, right? So I was able to stay engaged, tell people to vote, and take part of Blackout Tuesday without clogging up the Black Lives Matter hashtag. I did it, and it took me about 35 seconds to be compliant. And that's why we need strong leadership. When you give people clear guidelines, it's very, very easy for people to do what they can, because all they need is some guidance on what to do. Unfortunately, though, those friends who did it the clean way, those friends who showed compassion and emotional intelligence and who just wanted to educate people who might be confused, that was not the norm. Unfortunately, for every one of those people that I saw 10 more people talking crazy to their fan bases. I saw people basically telling their followers, you're an idiot if you take part in Blackout Tuesday, you dummies. And I'm sitting there like, wow. We are at a point in time where we need unity. We are at a point in time when we need to have each other's backs. We are at a point in time where there is a very well planned out attack against us. And you just turned around, fresh from being bailed out of jail, fighting for our rights, supposedly, and told everybody on your timeline that they are idiots. Wow. And my question to the people who did that is, now what? What did that serve? What did you get from making people who thought they were doing something good feel stupid? What did you get from taking a moment that could have just been a moment for you to teach and empower and clarify, and took it as a moment to scold? What did you gain from that? Who did that help? How did you elevate the conversation? I've always felt that there's nothing more dangerous in this world than a man that you have shamed, man or woman. When you shame someone, it takes away all incentive for them to listen to you. It takes away all incentive for people to feel safe around you. It takes away all incentive for people to feel like they can trust you to lead them to the promised land. I am a very blunt person. I am very blunt. I do not suffer fools gladly. However, even on my bluntest day, I do not shame people that I am seeking to empower. And a lot of you, from an emotional intelligence standpoint, failed on Blackout Tuesday from the way that you were coming at your fans, your followers, and folks who are writing for you. And the irony is, this is what kills me. I feel like I'm on the verge of getting laryngitis. You know why? I've spent the past, let me look at my time. I spent the past 8 hours today talking to influencers, celebrities, titans of industry, people with real power and clout who reached out to me and said, hey, Blue, I want to help. Here are a couple ideas I have about how to help the protesters. What do you think? So while I was being part of Blackout Tuesday, I spent the majority of my day talking to people who actually have money and power that I don't have access to about how they could help y'all. People who were taking part in Blackout Tuesday were still helping y'all behind the scenes while y'all were talking crazy to your followers like we're all idiots. And that breaks my heart. The vitriol that I've seen on my timeline is unnecessary and it serves no one. You can educate without talking down. I do it every day. Now, some people are like, well, Blue, sometimes you do a read. Let me tell you something. I only shame the devil. If you are being an oppressor, if you are a bully, then I will shame you because I don't believe in bigotry. The only thing that I am intolerant to is intolerance. So if you're being a bigot, yeah, you might not want to come to my page because you're going to get your feelings hurt. But if you are a decent human being who just needed more guidance, I'm not going to shame you. I'm going to explain to you what you need to know to have a more expanded view of what's going on. The same way my friends said, hey, Blue, if you're going to take a part in Blackout Tuesday, make sure you do these 3 or 4 things. Bet. Thank you for the information. Thank you for giving me clarity about something that I took part in casually that I didn't get much information about. And the funny thing is, as more information came out, I had more and more riveting conversations with folks, and I'm happy I took part in Blackout Tuesday. You know why? Because for me taking part in Blackout Tuesday, and folks knowing I'm not a dummy, folks know that I'm about that life, folks know that I've been an activist before being an activist was a hashtag and something that was popular, people who know my heart were like, oh, Blue's taking part of Blackout Tuesday, and she's not full of shit. Maybe we shouldn't talk down to other people who take part in it, and maybe we should lean in and ask questions. So those who used my participation as some kind of excuse to humanize others who took part, I'm happy I took part. If I did nothing else but keep y'all from talking crazy, I'm happy I took part. But for those who were lashing out from a place of pain, I want to address something that came up a lot, and I think it's a little disingenuous. A lot of people said, man, Blackout Tuesday is stupid because it's performative. Honey, I don't know how to say this any other way, but honestly, all activism at one time or the other has been critiqued for being performative. So what? People always think activism is performative. People always think, oh, all you're doing is holding a picket sign and walking down the street. What does marching down the street do? All you're doing is posting something on social media. What does that do? Activism has always been critiqued as being performative. So what? It doesn't make it any less valid. And also, I think it's disingenuous to act as if everybody who took part in Blackout Tuesday was an idiot, because you saw some of the smartest, most emotionally invested people in this movement taking part. You know their hearts. So you knew damn well they weren't doing it because they had ill intentions. You knew they had good intentions. If you had more clarifying information that you could have shared with them, share that with them. But you didn't need to talk to them crazy. So for anybody who's like, Blue, are you ashamed that you took part in Blackout Tuesday? Nope, I am not ashamed. I'm happy I took out in Blackout Tuesday because it let me know who I'm dealing with. It let me know whose emotional intelligence is not as well evolved as their policy and their activism. Okay, let me know who has read all the pamphlets and marched all the marches, but still hasn't figured out how to get right with the folks that they're trying to galvanize. Because I'm going to tell you something right now. You could be the smartest, most accomplished activist on the face of the earth. If people don't want to hear what you have to say because you talk to them crazy, you're not going to be as effective as you want to be. Okay, we need folks to buy into this movement. We need our own folks to buy into this movement. And I'm going to do a quick lesson Since everybody wants to be, the be all end all of how activism works, I'm going to do a quick lesson based on universal truth. Anybody who calls themselves an activist or an advocate has to make peace with three things. Number one, you have to make peace with the trauma, the microaggressions, and the oppression that you yourself have been subjected to. Anybody who is going to speak with or for a community has to know intimately what that feels like, because you have to be well informed about what you're speaking out against. So if you were a Black person who'd been called the N-word and you had all these feelings around race, if you were a woman who is now going to be a womanist or a feminist and you have all these feelings around your gender, whatever it is that if you are somebody who's fighting for gay rights or LGBTQ rights, whatever it is, you have to make peace with your personal experiences as a member of that group, right? So that's the first thing. Acknowledge how it's directly affected you. Once you acknowledge how it's directly affected you, the second thing is then you have to confront all the anti-rhetoric that has been spoon-fed to you. We don't talk about this enough, but Black people are spoon-fed anti-Blackness just as much as anybody else. Women are spoon-fed misogyny just as anybody else. LGBTQ plus people are spoon-fed homophobia just as much as anybody else. And a lot of that turns into internalized and really, really subconscious bias. So before you can preach to anybody else, you also have to confront the biases that live within you that were spoon-fed to you by society. So first you acknowledge how it's affected you, then you dismantle and unpack and get rid of all the stuff that you have unintentionally swallowed just by being a part of society. Once you've done those first two things, the third thing you have to do is make peace with the fact that a lot of the folks that you're fighting for are still in pain, haven't done the first two things themselves, and are going to cuss you out while you're fighting for them. I cannot tell you how many times while fighting for gay rights, I've had gay people talk to me crazy. I can't tell you how many times I've watched a lesbian be transphobic. I'm like, I'm an ally. Why are y'all talking crazy to each other? I can't tell you how many times I've had to call out an anti-Black person. I can't tell you how many times I've had to call out a misogynistic woman. Okay? And so I've made peace with the fact that I'm going to have to fully commit to being civically engaged. And that means knowing that sometimes the very people that you are fighting for would spit in your face if given the chance. And you know what? That's all coming from a place of pain, so you can't even take it personal. Those activists who were on their timelines talking crazy to people all Tuesday, those people are in pain. They are frustrated. They are annoyed. They're also, though, fighting from hubris. They are convinced that their way might be the only way. And I don't know how to break this to you guys. I said this before. Racial oppression, systemic oppression is a multi-pronged effort to keep whole groups of people down. If it took 100 different ways for them to hold us down, it's going to take more than 2 ways for us to dismantle it. Okay? There's more than one way to the promised land. For one person, they could be the world's best digital activist. For somebody else, they could be an organizer who's on the streets with picket signs. Somebody else could be like, look, I don't want to be on the picket signs, and I'm not about to cuss people out online, but I'll write you a big-ass check to make sure that y'all can take care of what you need to. There's a million different ways to be a part of this movement from a good and just place. Please stop talking down to people just because they're choosing a way that isn't yours. Please stop talking down to people that you're going to need to have your back when we get to where we're going. Please do not feel like you have the authority to be the be-all and end-all on how to be your activist, okay? It's whack. It's judgmental, it's divisive, and the last thing we need right now is to be divided. So, for anybody watching this video who made it to the end, for those who took part in Blackout Tuesday, I love you. I completely get where you were coming from. I understand your heart. To the young lady who reached out to me, don't you dare feel bad for talking me into being a part of it. I did it for the right reasons. I wanted you to know that I stood with you and I still stand with you. For all the folks who are out here scolding, I still love you too. Just do better. Just do better. I know you're lashing out from a place of pain, but your rage is misdirected. We are not the enemy. If you're going to talk crazy to somebody, talk crazy to your oppressor, not to your own people. And I think if you remind yourself that all of this comes from a place of pain, I think if you remind yourself that all this comes from a lack of leadership, and I think if you ask yourself, how can I do my part to fill in those gaps, then instead of feeling defeatist, instead of feeling alarmist, we can get back to finding a place where we can find power and be empowered to help each other out the way that we're supposed to. All right, enough of this ramble. I love you all, even those of you who don't love me back. If you are a person of color, if you are a black person, if you are a person who rides for black people and people of color and who wants to do better every day, even if you mess up on random days like Tuesdays, stay tuned. I'm rocking with you. I'm in this for the long haul. All right, peace.